CX Week presents great content equals great customer experiences. Before we begin, please ensure that you have opened the chat panel by using the associated icon located at the bottom of your screen. If you require technical assistance, please send a chat to the event producer. To submit a written question, please select all panelists from the drop-down menu in the chat panel. Enter your question in the message box provided, and when you are ready to send your question, hit Enter on your keyboard. Please note that all connections are muted at this time. As a reminder, this conference is being recorded. With that, I'll turn the call over to Melinda Belcher. Melinda, please go ahead.
All right. Thanks, Therese. Hello, and welcome to day 2 of CX Week. We're happy to be here to present to you about great content and great experiences. We firmly believe that you can't have a great experience without great content. So Kendall and I are here on behalf of the Content Design and Strategy team as part of Consumer Solutions to walk you through some best practices around how you can optimize your content to make sure that it's the best customer experience possible. In theory. Okay. It's not advancing. All right, I did it. So, quarantine. We've all been there. We've all done it. It's been real. And part of quarantine, at least for me, and I know for a lot of folks, has been cooking and learning how to cook new things, learning how to make new recipes. So my husband and I have a joke that when you open up a new recipe from a food blogger, often there's some giant preamble about that food blogger and their life, and the first time they ever ate roast asparagus, they were 2 years old, and they spit it on the floor, and all the things that you don't need to know, because all you need to know is, can I make this recipe? Can I make it in the time I have for the people that I have to feed, and with the ingredients that I have on hand? So a lot of this kind of extra information creates a bad customer experience. This is not good for me. This is not what I need to see in order to make the decision that I need to make, which is, am I going to use this recipe? So I wanted to show you the anatomy of an asparagus recipe that works for me and for my needs. First of all, a clear and concise header, because I need to know, is this asparagus that I can roast in my oven? I don't want a recipe for microwaved asparagus. I don't want a recipe for grilled asparagus. I want oven roasted asparagus. So check. This is definitely helping me to make my decision. And frankly, in this day and age, I have a lot of distractions. There's my children who, for some reason, are still here in my home. There's my husband who's also here. And there's Twitter, which is a problem. There's the news cycle. There's everything happening around me outside. So I need to be able to make a decision as quickly and easily as I can with the information presented to me. So the second piece of information is, as I mentioned before, can I make this in the right amount of time? So I've got 45 minutes. That's a yes. Can I make it for the amount of people I have to feed, which is 4? Yes, fantastic, I'm there. So moving on to the next piece of information, do I have everything that I need on hand, or can I get it to make this recipe? All of that is the next piece of information that is presented to me. So this is fantastic. This meets me where I need to be. It helps me make a decision really quickly because I have children and husbands and Twitter that I need to pay attention to. And all of those things are kind of making it so that I don't have enough information or enough time to focus to get the information that I need. Which brings us to a poll. And we're going to explain to you a little bit more why we're asking this question. But we want to know, we're anxious. Kendall and I are really just trying to get through every day right now. We're just trying to figure out how to make all this work. 2020 has been a wreck. So we want to ask you, how are you guys doing? How are you feeling about things right now? And we'll take a moment to pass it to Carice, who will open up the poll, and it will be in the chat, I believe. So you guys can take a look at that. I'm not seeing it for whatever reason. But you guys can take a look at that and give us some answers as to your levels of stress. Here it is. I see it now. How stressed are you right now? The first answer, I'm fine. I'm fine. I told you I'm fine. You under the covers? Is your face melting off? Or, my favorite, is there not enough wine in the world? Take just a second and give us your immediate response to the poll. And I think we're going to close it. Okay. Therese, can you tell us, how's everyone doing? everyone fine?
Yep, I'm giving it 3 seconds so everyone can finish up the answers, and I will now share the polling results.
Awesome. Okay. Not enough wine in the world wins, which I feel good about personally. But I think we just did this as a little kind of funny exercise to show, listen, all of us are stressed. All of us are stressed, especially right now. And this should help us to understand that, you know what, we've been stressed. As an American speaking to you from America, we like to be the leaders and the best at things, and we are the best at being stressed. We have been so good at it for like so long. This was 2 years ago that this was a headline in the New York Times, and things are even getting worse anxiety-wise, not just for us in this country, but obviously everywhere. There's just a lot happening. We're all operating with a little less brain space than we used to because we're spending that brain space being worried. So what does that mean for customer experience? What does that mean for content? I will tell you. When we design for users with anxiety, it's really important for us to focus on how we can give them the best content experience possible to keep them moving forward through an experience quickly and easily. And that means making the information clear. That means making sure that they have enough time to complete the action that we're asking them to take, that we're not rushing them through an experience. We're giving them time to review their answers. We're giving them the support that they need in case they have some trouble figuring out how to move forward. And when we do that, it helps folks to make a decision because we are starved for attention span. We're operating at a deficit. It's almost like a pre-existing condition that all of us have. And you can look at this as the way that you might look at other cognitive issues or learning disabilities, which quite a lot of us have, because you used to have 3 seconds to get someone's attention and 5 to keep it. But now, I don't even know, maybe 1 second to get someone's attention and 2 to keep it. It's all shrunk, and we have to be aware of that. But when you look at designing for folks with issues like dyslexia, with disabilities, and you look at some of the ways to optimize content for them, these are actually ways to optimize content for everyone. Using diagrams to support text, for example, keeping a consistent layout, making sure that you're keeping content short, clear, and simple. All of these are best practices with regard to content. And when you optimize content for folks who have these types of disabilities, you're actually optimizing content for absolutely everyone. And that's fantastic because for us as content designers, we really have one big objective, and that is to make sure that we're connecting the right people to the right content at the right time in order to keep them moving through an experience, in order to make sure that they're getting what they need when they need it. And that drives preference. It keeps them coming back. It builds that relationship for our products and our services as well as our organization as a whole. So it really behooves us to be focused on that altogether. And we believe that there are 3 elements to make sure that we are doing that and building those types of experiences. And those are making sure that we are telling a story that is interesting to folks and that is consistent across every touch point. So from talking about a product or a service, making sure that the terminology that I see inside that product is the same as what I see in an email. It's the same as what I might hear from a customer service representative. It's the same that I might hear in an advertisement. Making sure that we all are aligned on what the benefits are and how things work and how we keep people coming back, right? And telling that story in a way that uses the same language and that is clear and easy for folks to understand. We shouldn't make people work to understand how our products work. People don't have time for that. We are too busy looking at Twitter and dealing with our children who need to be in school. And the third piece of this is around customer needs and really understanding what does my customer need right now? How can I give them contextual, relevant information to keep them moving forward? Because that, frankly, is what builds those relationships and what creates experiences that people love. So within the organization, within Mastercard, our team in particular, content design and strategy, really unites folks around 2 big common goals. And we work with absolutely everybody. We work with legal, we work with customer service, we talk to sales, brand and marketing, and plus our design and development partners that we talk to every single day. And all of us have the same goal. We all want to create fantastic experiences, and we help to kind of focus those conversations around, are we making sure that people are able to find the information they need quickly and easily? And are we shaping experiences that are easy to get through, that are easy to understand, where folks know what's going to happen next and what's going to be required of them? And where applicable, are we creating experiences that are enjoyable? And sometimes when the experience is focused around the secure transaction or exchange of information, you know what? It might not be that enjoyable, but if it's not onerous, if it doesn't feel like a task to me, if it happens quickly and easily, that's enjoyable too. When I first started at Mastercard about 4 years ago, I felt like I was the only subject matter expert here. I was so happy to find that I was completely wrong about that, and I've been able to grow my team to 5, and you will meet Kendall today. But also, I've made some content friends around the organization, many of whom are not on this slide, but I just wanted to point out that this team works very closely with content strategy and development on the ONT side. You'll see Jill Sheffield, as well as the rest of her org represented, as well as Robbie Wellington on Connect. And if you were able to attend their talks yesterday, they really gave her a lot of shout-outs for helping them to optimize their content and helping them to create guidelines for the users of their platform so that everyone can understand how best to organize and present content for greater customer experiences. So I just wanted to kind of point out that these are our partners across the organization. There are many more, and we all are kind of working together to make sure that we're helping Mastercard as an organization to make more informed decisions around content. And with that, I will pass you to Kendall, who is going to take us through how to optimize our content for greater content experiences.
Awesome. Thank you, Melinda. I am excited to share with you some tools. We want to get tactical here. In these large format webinars, it can be a little bit tricky to get into the weeds, but at the same time, we know that a lot of the reasons why you show up for these types of events is to get some tools. So we're going to start by walking you through some really basic building blocks of what's going to make your content more accessible, easier to understand, more helpful for people who are stressed, who don't have a lot of time to parse what's going on. And these are just simple tools you can keep in your toolbox. And the great news is we're not just going to dump them on you here and say, thank you, have a nice day. We've built out a lot of resources on our SharePoint site so that you can keep following up and revisiting and finding new resources all the time. So sit back, let this wash over you, ask questions in the chat, get that chat going, and let us know what you're thinking as you're moving through. Offer up examples of places that you've seen this going on in your own experience, and ask questions as we go. We'll do some pauses as we go through each section to pick up some questions in the chat, so feel free to jump in there. The first thing that we're going to cover is plain language, which is going to help us understand how to write in the simplest and clearest fashion for the most people to understand. We're going to then talk a lot about how we can provide some structure to our pages in order to make people's flow of interpretation match sort of how their brains work and interact with content as it's laid out. And we're going to approach that both through using headings and subheadings to organize the information, and then breaking things up to use negative space using lists and line breaks. So that's the big picture. But for the next little section, I want to ask you a question. We're going to throw another poll into the chat in this next coming moment. I'm going to give you 4 different instructions. These are samples of what you might find in any kind of help center content, helping a user figure out what step to do to troubleshoot a problem that they might be having. So when we get that poll in there, you're going to see 4 different examples of the same instruction, and I'm going to ask you to take 30 seconds and see if you can identify which one of those seems the clearest to you, okay? So if you're ready, Carice, I'm ready. Let's put them up there. Which of these 4 instructions, all describing the same action, feel the clearest to you? Jump in there. You got 30 seconds. Fantastic. And let's see what people thought.
If you're in the middle of answering, you still have about 5 seconds before it closes entirely. And please make sure you hit submit. All right, I will now share the polling results.
Awesome. Okay, so the results for me, I don't know if you guys can spread them out a little bit so that you can see the answers. The most popular result I'm excited to see is D, and C was a strong option too. We couldn't make it too simple on everybody, so there's reasons why we'll talk about these. If you can drag your chat window over and look at the examples again, you'll see a little bit more of why this is a little clearer. So option D, the reason why this is an awesome answer is that we're trying to connect with the user about what they want to do. We're putting the user's intent first. They want to open the menu to find the thing that they're looking for, so we provide that. In order to do this thing that you want to do, here's how you do it. So to open the menu, select the 3 dots. And unlike the other options that use insider jargon like kebab menu or any sort of directional text like it's above this thing or it's 3 down from that thing, all are less helpful to people who are not navigating the experience by sight. There are lots of users who navigate experiences by screen readers, and directional things like it's above that or below that are really not helpful to those users and can be really disorienting. The other reason why this works well, I don't know if you can still see, but the edit that was described there, then click edit, was offset with a capital letter because that's what it's going to look like in the user interface. It's going to make it pop in easier for people to scan and see what they need to do. So awesome responses. Love your engagement on that. Thank you for that. And now we're going to talk a little bit more about how we do that in our own writing. So this idea of plain language, okay, this is the definition provided by the plainlanguage.gov website. Plain language is a set of governing principles that were actually written into law in 2010 that says that the government has to communicate with people in a way that they understand. And if anybody has experienced any type of government form in their life, which I think we've all been blessed, death and taxes, you know, what they say about those, we all know how difficult it is to navigate government jargon. And what does that mean to me? What does that mean to my family? It creates all kinds of anxiety about, like, am I answering this correctly? Should I ask somebody for help? What about all those people who don't have the resources of the internet to Google and say, what exactly does it mean to XYZ thing from that government form? So plain language is an effort to radically transform the way the government communicates with its people, and it includes really robust guidance that I think everyone should have in their back pocket, because it's not just about government communications, it's really guidance on how to communicate clearly in any context. Digital, print, email, all of it relies on clear communication strategies that are outlined in the plain language outline. So we're going to go through a little bit about what that means, but I really encourage you to drop plainlanguage.gov into your browser and add it to your bookmarks, because there's a lot of really good resources there. So the first and probably plain language in a nutshell, keep it short, keep it active, and people are going to understand more clearly, okay? Active sentences that let us know who is doing the thing, you know, use this tool, are all clearer ways of communicating to our users than putting things in the past tense, or in the passive tense, excuse me. So in addition to being active, keeping our sentences short and tidy are going to make them easier to comprehend as well. The idea that we want to put one thought in a sentence rather than lots of clauses strung on to one another with lots of commas and ands and wherefores and this having been done before. All of those things add layers of complication to people's ability to follow the through line of what we're instructing them. So I like to think of this idea of short sentences kind of like if you were writing bullet points in a list, but in a narrative form, how would you group things so it was just one idea at a time in a nice, simple, active statement in a sentence that sort of lets you move quickly through? In addition to that, I want to show you some of these examples in action. So one of the fun resources on the Plain Language website is something that they call the No Gobbledygook Awards. They are awards that the government gets out with an appropriately quirky government name to encourage people to implement these standards and give them recognition for doing so well. The principles that are highlighted here, one of the things that makes this easier to comprehend is using really short words, short in characters, meaning that are easy for our eyes to scan, Part of the reason they're easy for our eyes to scan is because we're used to seeing them a lot. The more frequently we see a word in our day-to-day life, in our encounters, the easier it is for our brain to clock what it is without having to read every character and sound it out. And in the same way, we want to be predictable in the sense that we want to use words that other people would use to describe the same situation. For example, this top example is very funny to me. It's some guidance for truck operators who've blown out on the highway and had to pull over and may or may not have created a rut on the side of the road. So hearkening back to our how stressed are you conversation, I think if we were to put on our empathy hats and be in the position of this truck driver, he or she is going to be a little stressed that they just had to get out and fix a blown out tire and maybe they were dislodged off the side of the road. Probably not a fun experience. You're reading through that first paragraph. When the process of freeing a vehicle that has been stuck, the operator will fill the rudder hole created by such activity. What are they talking about? This makes me stressed just to even read it out loud to you. But if we use the language that people expect in the simplest way of saying something, if you make a hole, you got to fill the hole before you drive away. It's really that simple. And so even though this is a government communication that we wouldn't expect to be communicated in this way, it's actually making that information more democratized. It's more available for more people to engage and get what they need from it. So in the highest level of the plain language principles, I do encourage you, again, to go to plainlanguage.gov and go more in depth with each of these. But the biggest principles are we're writing in those short active and strong verbs. We're writing in short sentences. We're pulling in personal pronouns, which just means we use things like your account, my wallet, things along those lines to associate what's in the product with the user so that they can identify the things that we're making, the products and services, as extensions of the things that they need. They're tools, they're personal assistants. It's my calendar. It's not Google's calendar. It's my calendar, right? We use those personal pronouns to make them relatable to ourselves. Even though this guidance was put together by professionals with lots of government scrutiny and oversight, I do think it's also important to point out that everything is iterative and we can always keep getting better. So I want to highlight one particular edit I would like to offer the plain language guidelines, which I don't know about you, but when I get down to tabular presentation of complex information, I had to do some Googling, and this is my thing. So I think that we can always find a clearer way to say something, and we should always continue to press ourselves to do that by asking other people, does this make sense to you? Is there a clearer way to say this? So tabular presentation, we're really talking about what's coming later on in this workshop, which is we're going to separate complex ideas into tables and lists. We want to make it easy for somebody on a screen reader to tab their way through that experience so that they can hear things in an order that makes sense to them and it's organized and has some structure to it. This isn't just about making our digital products work better, increasing preference for our product, increasing market share, all of those things that we think about as business KPIs. This is actually about a lot bigger than that. So to take a look at these instructions to juries in California. The before gives us an idea of how we're communicating in the courtroom prior, and the after shows a lot more human language, a lot more understandable and digestible. When you think about the implications of a jury feeling confident in the instructions that they're receiving, that they're making decisions that are reflecting the instructions that are given to them, there's really major consequences to having language that's understandable and that everyone has access to. So it's not something we take lightly. It is required by law, but it also is the right thing to do, and it feels good to achieve because we're opening up our experiences to more people. It's not about dumbing things down. It's about opening things up to more people as much as we possibly can. So it's not just about writing in plain language. It's also about giving some structure to your content to help people's eye as they're moving through the process. So we're going to talk a little bit about hierarchy in a page and how we can strategically use headings and subheadings to sort of guide that experience as we move a user through a digital interface. So we're going to play a short little game. Find your chat window. We're going to need you to jump into the chat. But we are going to play the 5-second game, which is just a simple marketing tool that's going to help us understand if we have a strong page hierarchy. So what's going to happen is I'm going to flip to the next slide just for 5 seconds. I'm going to let you absorb what you can, as much as you can in those 5 seconds. And then when those 5 seconds are up, I'm going to ask you to blow up the chat with whatever it is you can remember. What is it that sticks with you from this 5 seconds on the page? So here we go. Without any further ado, we have 3, 2, 1. Let's do it. That's it. That's all the time we have. So taking in that page, let me know in the chat. Send it to everyone. We all want to see what's going on in here. So drop it into the all participants, I think is the label, all attendees, yes. What are we seeing? What are we seeing in that chat? We see brown. Thanks, Kozak. A real-time meeting with exhibitors, right? Okay, we got that one piece of information. What I find interesting about real-time meetings with exhibitors is I'm wondering, what kinds of meetings are we talking about? Where are they exhibiting? Are they exhibitionists? What's going on? What is happening with these people? We don't know anything about what's going on. If I take you back to this page, I still don't know where my eye should go. I know I'm on Alibaba.com. I know that there's some sort of e-commerce thing happening, but I don't really know what types of products are under each of those categories, and I really don't know where my eye belongs at any point on this page. It's really overwhelming. Okay, so we're going to talk about a way to do that a little bit better. The Nielsen-Norman Group, if you're not familiar, is a leader in the science and documentation and study of usability and has been for a long time. And one of their studies on how people read is hugely informative in how we structure content on a page. So if you take a look at the heat maps, you can see that people's eyes tend to track across the top of the page first. They want to know what that first bit of information, that top line headline, we call it the top line message for a reason, right? Because it's at the top of the page and people can grab it. But then they tend to move down the left-hand side of the page, scanning for relevant information that might be related to a topic that they're interested in. You can see that the whole page isn't read. We know people aren't going to read everything on the page, and we don't need them to. We just want them to find the paragraph or the section that is actually relatable to their needs and their desires in that moment, so that if they do find something that piques their interest, they use that middle bar of the F to scan across and go a little bit deeper into that section. But this informs how we want to structure and lay out our content on pages. How are we going to make sure that people are getting the most of what they need in the shortest amount of time, because we know we're not going to hold their attention for very long. So how do we do this in practice, right? The most important thing is that we understand what is the most important thing to communicate. We need to know, not just from our business objectives perspective, but like, what do the users think that they need to know? What are they going to ask questions about in order to engage with something? So we lead with what's most relevant. We lead with the idea that here at Poshmark, there is a hackathon coming up. It is happening in 2018, and you can submit your idea for a feature. That's all top line available to me at the top of this page in really big, bold text treatment. And then in order of importance, we move down. We give a little explanation about what this thing is. We talk about dates. Those are all moved toward the left-hand side of the page so that people can catch them quickly when they're scanning. And we're also using white space around each of the paragraphs, which are all short and concise, so that people's eyes have a chance to break and breathe as they move through the section. I do want to call out that images are a trap in the sense that we want to make sure that we use them to illustrate and support, but not necessarily to communicate critical information. Again, thinking about accessibility and making sure that, let's say we all know from our Mastercard Outlook service, right, that the images don't always download, right? We might miss critical information if we have our browser configured in a certain way, or somebody experiencing that email through a screen reader, if it's not tagged with the right metadata and doesn't have good alt text, they're going to miss it. So it's important not to rely on those images to be the narrative or to communicate the most key information, but they can help visually support the story in a way that breaks up the page. So use them strategically. I won't even say with caution. Use them strategically and make sure that you know that the information is being communicated well, again, along that F shape on the page. In summary for headings and subheadings, they work well for you. They work hard for you. There's science behind how we engage with them and how we interpret the information that comes from them. So be strategic about it, map out what's most important, create a hierarchy for yourself, and make sure that you're structuring your page so that your headings and your subheadings are really clearly communicating what content they are going to find in that paragraph so that we can draw their eye away from the backside of the S and onto one of the bridges. Let's give them some E's instead of some S so that they're reading more on our page because they're finding what they need. All right? So, in addition to those headings and subheads, the thing that matters that we're carrying through here is the idea of structure, right? If we can structure our content with headings and subheads, if we can structure our content with lists and line breaks, we're giving people's brains the ability to not have to think and parse what's going on around it. We're boiling the information down to the most concise version of itself. So, Content Design London is a group that we have consulted with in content design and strategy for their accessibility guidance. They are a content design consultancy, and they have great thought leadership on their website. I encourage you, again, add them to your bookmarks if you're a content nerd like me and love to read other people's style guides. Always interesting to see how choices are made. But Content Design London, we have used as a gut check for ourselves to make sure that we're implementing accessibility standards to the best of our ability. And we've got some really useful feedback from them about how to make our content increasingly accessible with every step of the process. One thing that they're doing really well on this slide is helping us understand in a summary at the top of the page what we're going to get out of this. Following these steps are going to help you help these people, right? It's so clear at the top of the page what the value is that I'm getting. And they've used that bulleted list to group like content together, right? These are all different types of people who are going to have a benefit from following their guidance on abbreviations and acronyms. The too long didn't read of that is that if you fill your content with abbreviations and acronyms, most people are going to spend their time going, what the heck is SRC and all of these different acronyms that we love to throw around because they make our lives simpler, but we have to be really careful in how we communicate to other people that we're not adding additional stress and additional anxiety because they're trying to figure out what the heck CTP stands for, you know, and in the corporate world that's shorthand for how we communicate for one another, but we have to make sure we're really clear about communicating externally. But that's besides the point because we're really focusing on these bullets here. And the thing that I want to point out is that even as this content design consultancy put out this guidance, they also, we noticed when we came back, they had done some iteration on it. They found ways to make it clearer. They found ways to make it more concise. They found ways to add increasing parallel structure, which is something I'll call out here in this list. Parallel structure is the idea that the content is structured in the same way across each bullet, meaning grammar-wise or the way the sentence is put together all sort of fits with one another. So if I read the top headline, following this step helps people with time pressures, helps people with stress, helps people with multitasking. It doesn't say the pattern stays the same as we move through the list. And that, again, helps users have to think less and understand that this like information is being grouped with other like information. So, tips for your bullet list. We all have seen them. We all probably have written them at some point in our life. But there's a couple of things that will make them feel even more strategically structured and make them a little clearer and easier to understand. So, first and foremost, give them an order. There's context required in order for people to understand. We need that statement above the last slide that says, this is going to help you with. We need that introduction so that we have an idea of what's coming next, okay? It's also important to put bullets into some sort of an order that makes sense so that people aren't trying to guess. Is this the most important to the least important? Is it in some sort of stepwise procedure? Are they alphabetical for a reason, or is it totally random? Our brains look for those patterns whether we know we are doing so or not. And so if we can help users by giving that structure as best as we can, then it's going to help them not have to guess about why things are in the order that they are. And most of this is happening at a subconscious level, but those little micro computations, as I'd like to call them, are like tabs running in your background in your browser, right? You may not notice that they're happening, but they are taking bandwidth, And the more of those tabs we can close down by just keeping things organized and logical, the less time people are going to have to spend figuring out what we're talking about. Lists and bullets are great for communicating sets of information, but we also want to think, how big of a set of information are we trying to communicate? If we give people a list of bullets that are 25 bullets long, that is almost going to be as overwhelming as experiencing it as a big old wall of text. So we want to make sure that we can group smaller items with smaller items. We want to keep things easily digestible and easily scannable. And finally, if there is a sequence of steps, rather than using bullet points, use numbers. Same concept, but you're really giving people the cue that this is an order of operations that they need to follow, and it's going to really help them jump right in without second guessing that that's what's being asked of them. So another example from the No Gobbledygook Awards at plainlanguage.gov is from the Occupational Safety and Health Administration. Some instructions about dipping some things into a vat of some chemicals of some kind. I tell you what, I was reading that first left-hand example, and I even putting this slide together kept thinking to myself, oh my God, do I have to keep reading? There's just so much going on here, and I don't know what it's about. This has nothing to do with me. But when the same information was translated into plain language, it is, and broken up into lists, it's so much easier to scan. We're understanding exactly what needs to happen here. You're using a dip tank. These are the different ways you could use it. Notice the parallel construction of each of those bullet points. They all complete the sentence in the same way. They're being used to clean an object, to code an object, to alter. All of those things follow the same pattern grammatically, sentence structure-wise, so that they all fit into the same pattern and we don't have to think too hard. And with that level of clarity, there's going to be far greater compliance and understanding by the people who are implementing these standards in their workplace. And if anybody knows anything about what OSHA does, that's also a matter of life and death. If people are understanding what chemicals are safe to use in their environments and using them appropriately, we can have a whole heck of a mess if that doesn't get followed. So the clear communication is so critical. All right, so moving on from bullet points, I want to talk a little bit about the dreaded wall of text, right? I am not going to ask anybody to try to read this other than to just try to take in the information that's happening here. I don't know about you, but when I look at this wall of text, I feel my blood pressure rise. My eyes scan. I start touching what are in quotes. What's this text walling or TLDR? I'm moving through and I'm catching certain things, but I have absolutely no idea what's trying to be communicated to me here. And this is even more difficult and anxiety-producing for people who experience content differently, whether it be because of dyslexia or grade level of reading. There's any number of reasons why this becomes increasingly inaccessible to more and more people, and is a real turnoff to our products and services. And I can imagine that as you're running through your brain and thinking through, where have I seen these types of things before? We all know that they can creep into terms and conditions and privacy notices where we have to do a lot of covering our bases to make sure that we are in full compliance with everything. But when we look at this much information, we're not actually getting any of it. We're just sort of overwhelmed by it. It's a tidal wave. Now, on this next slide, this same information is presented with some text hierarchy. We're communicating exactly the same type of thing. We're trying to get the user to understand why this happens. We're trying to get the user to understand with the subheadings that it's not just one type of wall of text. There's multiple types. There's variations on it. There's ways that this affects people. And you still get to the bottom there and know that the only known cure is to not write a wall of text, right? That we're communicating so much more clearly because of all the negative space on that page. And we're not losing anything because we've given the page structure and organization. So one of the first ways we do that, it's just putting space between things. It's as simple as that. It's hitting return a couple more times than you might be used to. Okay, if you take a look at the statement above and the statement below, where does your eye go? What do you see? This is what you want instead. We're using bold text formatting to make sure that your eye is drawn to the most important information as you're running down that left-hand side of the page. You don't need to read everything in the middle of that paragraph because you know just by looking at it, that's going to be difficult. If I try to follow those instructions, I'm sure that those instructions are communicating something difficult, okay? Our brains actually make the association that if something looks hard to do, it's definitely going to be hard to do, even if it's super simple. So if we can make sure that people can feel and see and experience that the instructions are simple, they're far more likely to take that initiative and move forward with that because of the way their brains build trust into that. So let's look at some examples of this out in the wild, okay? We've got a booking here from the Humming Puppy Yoga Studio. I'm sure that they're a great place to get your vinyasa on, and we could all use a little bit more of that right now. But let's say I booked my appointment at the Humming Puppy, and I get this email. And I had, first of all, if I actually open it, everyone's lucky because booking confirmation could mean anything. I don't know who it's from or what it's doing or when it's for or what I need to do next. Do I need to open this? It's just a confirmation, and forget about it. I don't need that email, right? Or it's a missed opportunity to communicate something important in the hierarchy of that page. But beyond that, there's so much text on the page, I'm immediately turned off. I have no desire to read every part of this email because it's not designed, it's not laid out, it doesn't have any hierarchy or important structure. At most, I'm going to get that I have a MAT number when I get there. Beyond that, I'm not really sure if I care about anything else in this email. On the other hand, done a little bit better, is an email that is designed for mobile. It gives you the information that you need right up front. We know exactly by looking at that subject line that we're going to be completing a survey and it's probably not going to take that long. We know that we're feeling valued as a customer. We also know as we scan the left-hand side of the page, that date looks familiar to me. It's right there at the left-hand side. There's one sentence per paragraph. They're very simple sentences. And the interactions with the survey also seem really simple and easy to use right there in the content. And also I'm going to draw attention to the fact that the unsubscribe link down in the footer is clearly offset. Nobody needs to hunt and peck and find to get to it. And while we never want to see our customers leaving our experiences, giving them the trust that we are giving them that choice to do so is part of our ethics here as a company, and it's also part of how we build that reinforced trust over time that people have control in their relationship with us, especially as it relates to their data. So all of these things contribute to the concept that a scannable, designed email is going to communicate the information you need to communicate far more clearly than a big old wall of text. So there are some tools, and I'm going to pass it back to Melinda to talk about what we do now that we have these tools and we've handed them off to you, and where you can go to take the next steps to follow up on those.
Yes, hello, thank you. I'm going to drop a link in the chat to our website on SharePoint on the Hub. Hold on. I don't know why this sticks for me, but it does. Anyway. So you guys can check this out on your own. I'm going to go through this kind of quickly so we have enough time to answer some questions. But we do have a list of very robust resources and content for you on the Hub on our website, which is here in the chat. We do have some how-to guides as well as some approved content that legal has vetted, that users have vetted, that we've had in market for a while that you can pick up and use, as well as some guidelines for those who are tasked with designing new content, because while we do have quite a lot more content design experts now at Mastercard than we used to, we certainly still don't have enough to support every project. So we really want to make sure that everyone is comfortable looking at these resources themselves. For example, here's one about accessibility and how to find those resources and use them. And you'll see that we've worked in conjunction with the Connect team as well as Jill Sheffield's team to make sure that we're presenting guidelines that are aligned as far as our perspectives on the approach to content that we take at Mastercard with regard to our products and services. So here you'll see here's the ready-to-use content, how to design new content. Please go there and check it out. And also, if you're curious to know more, please join the CXMD Guild. I think we can put a link to that in the chat as well. On the Guild, there is a content-curious team. So CXMD is a guild that talks about all things customer experience, but we do have our own channel where we discuss all things content. So if you want to learn more, ask us a question, that's the place to find us. And I would be remiss if I did not mention, as one of the organizers of CX Week 2020, please, we have a ton of content for the rest of the week. Please find us also on the Hub, and I will put that in the chat. There's a long list of events that are coming up, most importantly the Fireside Chat tomorrow, which I'm super excited about. If you want any more information, you can contact me. I'm happy to send you an invite directly. And with that said, thank you very much for attending today. It's been a real pleasure to walk you through some of our thinking on the perspective of scannability and how we can optimize content for greater customer experiences. I'd love to know, as I'm sure Kendall would as well, if any of you have any questions for us in the time we have remaining.
Exactly. Carice, if you wouldn't mind giving us those instructions for how we can get people audio questions if they want to ask them, or in the chat as well.
Oh, yeah.
Both are great.
Sure. Once again, to submit a written question, go ahead and type the question in the message box provided under the chat panel. When you're ready to send, hit enter on your keyboard. To ask a question verbally, hit #2 on your telephone keypad. You will hear a notification that will let you know your line is unmuted. At that time, please state your name and question. Once again, to ask a verbal question, hit #2 on your telephone keypad.
Thanks, Carice.
So it looks like we have a question here from Dawn. Thank you, Dawn. Is there a function within your team that you review large customer communications, i.e. for events or engagements outside of what is sent via the TRC? I realize that may not be doable with resources. So we do offer the opportunity, if you do want to ping us with something that you have questions about or need support on a review for. If bandwidth does allow, we would love to support those types of efforts. The truth, though, is that our team, our small but mighty team of 5, is fully resourced to projects ourselves. And so depending on the ebbs and flows of bandwidth of the year, we will always do what we can to support and especially to answer questions that you may have along the way. But also, that's part of the reason why we really encourage you to jump into the style guides that we've provided. It's sort of been a big project of our Q3 to make sure that these learnings that we're gathering from across different parts of the org are easily usable and easy to find. So we always encourage people to start there, because part of what's on that site is a whole library of usable stuff that you can grab and use with confidence that it's a strong pattern that you can apply to your situation. So I encourage you to start there, but always feel free to reach out, especially in the Teams channel that I dropped in the chat just a little bit earlier. If you join us on the Teams channel, that's a great place to get real-time feedback. If it's just can you check this or this, which is a better option, somebody can grab that really quickly there.
Yep, that's great. And we have another question, too, around passive voice and passive writing. And is there a good resource or tool for fixing that? And I think this is a great chance for us to offer up some of the tools that we use every day. The number one being Hemingway app. I have it open right now. I can see it on my laptop. It is free. You can use it online. I think it's Hemingway.app, I'm not sure. But it's a great way to check readability in general of whatever you're writing, and it will give you a score based on a very complex algorithm that has been compiled over years by linguists and scientists around not just passive voice constructions, which it will flag, but also vocabulary choices and sentence structures, things that are too long, all of that stuff it'll flag for you, and you can use it real time. So as you make edits, it will tell you how the grade level is going either up or down, and that'll be really helpful for you going forward if you're testing content. Does that answer the question?
Yep. I just want to chime in and let everyone know, please hit all panelists when you're posing your question. I do have a question that came to me privately. Is there a software that would validate UI for screen reader accessibility?
That is such a great question, and you are hitting on my Q4 project right now. So I am working really hard on doing screen reader accessibility audits for Click-to-Pay, especially as we move into our global market expansion, which I encourage you to to come back for the Click-to-Pay scaling talk that Jess Greco and the Click-to-Pay team are going to be giving. Hit me with a date, Melinda. Do you have that top of mind? Is this on the next slide or previous slide?
They're giving it tomorrow. The Click-to-Pay talk is tomorrow. Yeah. Yeah.
So as part of our efforts to scale there, we're going to be needing to meet accessibility requirements for additional markets, which are more stringent in the U.S. So as part of that effort, we're doing a deep dive into screen reader audits and how to best use those tools here in Q4. So drop us a line at Content Curious if you have a specific question around screen readers, because I would love to collaborate with you on finding the solutions as we learn about them too. So that's a growing field for us in our developing expertise there. So that's the email where you can ping us with all questions. I'll drop that into the chat as well.
Yeah, and I also dropped another link into the chat from the Connect accessibility resources. They do have a list of testing tools and compliance tools that they use, if that's kind of what you're asking about. So you can go over there too and kind of see what they've put together around how they're approaching accessibility on the Connect platform.
I'm not sure if you all saw this question. Is there a good resource or tool for fixing passive writing?
Yes, we talked about that.
That's our Hemingway app that we dropped in there. Thanks for that, Chris. But that's a great resource. Another one that, if you're interested in using it, I'm not sure that it's available to us on our Mastercard system, but in your private life, Grammarly is another great tool that you can use both the free and paid versions of to just encourage more awareness around both grammar. It's a highly sophisticated grammar spell check version tool that will always highlight things that are passive voice for you and offer you alternatives, and it even gamifies it a little bit with weekly reports on how well you're doing and common mistakes you're making. And so big fans of that as well in our household. Even has a keyboard for your iPhone if you want to check your grammar as you type text messages.
Yeah, there are a lot of tools. In fact, like I'm kind of looking at my bookmarks bar. I have Readable.io, which is another one that I use sometimes, as well as Rewordify. I think when you're writing all the time, you have a lot of resources available to you. I can see someone else saying Grammarly is awesome. It does work on Mastercard machines, which is this is going to change my life. Thank you for that. Yeah, if you're looking for a specific resource or tool for something, you can always ping us, because we have a very deep bench of tools available to us for writing and optimizing our writing.
We also have tools that could be helpful for any designers that are working with developers to try to make some parity between any design files in Sketch and what's out in the code base. So that's a newly developing frontier of tooling that we're building for ourselves here. So if you have that rings any bells for you that might be a useful tool for you to explore, again, drop us a message on Content Curious, and we'll include you in the conversations as we open source that more largely at Mastercard.
Yeah, and I think the other piece of that too, Kendall, which you're making me think of, is vendors. If you're looking to hire a content person, or if you're looking for someone to do an accessibility audit, for example, I had someone contact me recently about that. We know who all of the vendors are. We know where all the bodies are buried. We can help you find out who's through MSA, who's done what work for whom. And if you're looking for a resource, we know a lot of people in the content community, both in New York and globally, because we've been running a meetup for a while. So we've got contacts all over the world. We're happy to help you kind of connect to what you need when you need it.
Yep, and just surfacing something Donald said in the chat that I think is helpful for everyone. The writing guidelines that we're talking about here with plain language are something that apply universally to written content. And if you are looking to communicate more clearly to make sure that you're getting what you need out of your meeting notes or requests from your colleagues for something that you need more urgently, think about these plain language guidelines and think, is there a way that I can structure this content in a way that the person who I need to do something is going to see their name in big bold on the left-hand side of that page saying, do this thing. It might be a really helpful way of getting more to the point and getting what you need out of those business communications as well. So they're universally applicable, not just for interfaces. It's a really good point, Donald.
Without further ado, and I'm happy to take another question if there's time, I just want to make sure that everyone's aware that CX Week is a larger initiative, and we really want to know what you think about not just this talk that you're doing with us today, but CX Week as a whole. If you're able to attend all the sessions, some of the sessions, none of the sessions, just this one, please let us know what you think and how we can make it better for next year. We're always looking for customer feedback to help us improve our experience. So if you don't know how to use a QR code, a lot of people don't. It's super easy. You just open your phone camera. For most phones, if you have an older Android, it might be whatever your QR reader is. Point it at this code right now, and you can take our CX Week survey, or we'll send it to everyone later as well. But this is just a reminder that it's here, and we hope that you will take it and give us your feedback.
Absolutely.
Also, attendees are requesting that you send all the links with a follow-up email.
Can do.
Definitely.
All right, guys. Would you like a minute back in your day? Because we're happy to provide.
Thank you so much for being here, and we hope that you'll reach out to us with any of the problems that you're looking to solve. We'll say hello on Content Curious if you got something out of it today, and just let us know that you were here and want to join the community. That would be really awesome as well.
Great.
Thank you
for facilitating today. Thanks, everyone.
Yeah, thanks, Grace.
You're welcome.
Bye.
Thank you for using Event Services. Everyone may now disconnect.